It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey.
Hi, it's Aaron Grossman. You're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. This is a special edition of Her Success Story because we're turning around the microphone and interviewing Ivy Slater, CEO and founder of Slater Success, to have her discuss her own particular pathway to her success story. Welcome, Ivy.
Aaron, thank you for interviewing me. It's a little daunting to be on this side of your own podcast, I have to say.
Oh, I think you'll be fine, and I hope you enjoy it because it's you have a great story, first of all, and second of all, I think people, regular viewers or listeners, not viewers, would want to hear your story. So here goes. Just a quick, brief introduction on why me, or who I am, and what our relationship is.
Yes, I was going to say, our listeners have not met you before. Please share why you volunteered to do this with me and encouraged me greatly, which I appreciate.
Hello, listeners. I'm Aaron Grossman. Ivy and I met at a networking group 6 or 7 years ago and became close friends. You might call us kindred spirits because we hit it off right away. Even after I moved away to Panama 4 years ago to be with my family here and to continue to write, be a copywriter, Ivy and I always kept in touch. I write content for social media, specializing in blogs, bios, and other brand content found on websites and all social platforms. An opportunity presented itself, and I am now the copywriter for the Slater Success Team. So, hello.
Woohoo! And it's been great and fun working together.
That's it. Ditto. I love it. I really love it. It's quite personal, and it is reminiscent to me of years ago when a team was more than a team. You weren't just business associates; you were colleagues and personal. So that's the way. Family. This feels like family to me. So thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. Very, very briefly, these are the areas we're going to cover today. One, Ivy's vision for the company. 2, how Slater Success has grown since opening its doors 16 years ago. 3, how executive coaching and consulting has changed in that time. And finally, the purpose of talking to her today is really to find out how Ivy has adopted management approaches to accommodating Slater Success's growth. So that's it.
Content rich. Let's go.
Okay, here we go. Ivy, every Her Success Story podcast opens with an inspirational tune whose lyrics are, quote, "Finally, I know that it's my time to shine," end quote. Can you pinpoint when you realized it was your turn to shine in Slater Success or in your career?
It took a long time. It took a long time. I'll say for Slater Success, it was several years of running this company. When I transitioned from running my printing company, Slater Graphics, and so a little backstory there is I ran the 2 companies for 2 years. I started a succession plan out of Slater Graphics in the spring of 2007, opened Slater Success in January of 2008, was completely divested of Slater Graphics in January 2010. So there was a timeline there. So the first couple of years I was running 2 companies. The joke in my personal family was, mom has 2 kids, 2 businesses, 2 homes, and we have 1 dad, and it's like yep, we got 1 husband there.
I was hoping they weren't going to say 2 husbands. Yeah.
The first couple of years, I was truly building this business as I was divesting myself of Slater Graphics. Then I jumped into Slater Success full time, and I thought I had it, and I didn't. And this is what I mean by that. I said, I built this successful printing company and there was a boys club and I, seven figures and all like, it's like nothing like first of all, I never looked at the seven-figure thing at that point. It's like, I just built a great business. I had great clients. I made great money, bottom line. And I was like, I got this. I know what I'm doing because I understood the financial pieces. I understood so much. What I didn't get, and here's the point of your question, when it was my time to shine, I didn't own my confidence. I didn't own what I knew. I didn't know how I can help others. And it took a bunch of years, and I invested very heavily in coaching for me to truly see the areas I shine in, own the areas I shine in. I'll remember I was in a mastermind. I was with a bunch of people, one of which was my friend Greg, my friend Maddie. Like we became all good friends. And we had to present something to the front of the room. And there were two master coaches who were running this mastermind. And I do my presentation on where my business is, the first quarter, blah, 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 the whole thing. And they're like, Ivy, what, like, we have a couple of questions on like your experience level. I was like, sure. And I was very playing myself down. I was not standing in my brilliance. I was not playing where I shined. I was like, like I was down talking me. And
Got it.
they asked me a question. They're like, what was the highest when you owned Slater Graphics or any of the derivatives of the printing company? Because we had various mergers. He goes, what was the greatest sales you ever had? And I'm like, I don't know. I have to think about that. Hold on. Let me just kind of calculate. And, finance, I have numbers on my, how do we call this, Aaron? Numbers are a sweet spot of mine. I like playing in the numbers.
They're your
Okay.
thing. Yes. And numbers reveal everything,
Yeah,
which
numbers tell a
by the way,
story.
I will get to in another question,
Yeah.
but we'll get there.
And like I figured out what I was earning, what my partners were earning, what other business I was running, and I calculated the percentage of overhead, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just standing in front of the room. I was like, just give me a minute. And I'm like doing this in my head. I was like, I'd say probably around 3.5 million. And they're like, who ran the company? I said, I did. I ran the sales, I ran the finances. And they're like, so you ran, and they're like, do you know people need this help in this area? And I'm like, what do you mean? And that was starting to be the turn. And then more and more clients were coming to me and showing up and saying, if I'm here and I want to go to here, how do I get there? And I would start start doing the work that I knew, not because I'd learned it in a book, but I knew intrinsically from running a business. And they're like, well, I have this problem with this employee. I was like, tell me what's going on. Let's see what we can do about this. Or, do you think I should hire? Like, I was like, why are you not? Or I would say, I literally said this to the client yesterday. I was like, you guys, if you do not hire soon, you're going to get yourself behind the eight ball because you need to hire. You guys know you need to hire and you're not hiring and you're stalling and you're going to cause a problem. And I was like, we've been down this road before. Don't repeat this. And they're like, oh, yeah, we remember that. I was like, you need to hire, right? And it was just things that were, and then I'd like turn around and say, who said these wise things? Like, where'd this come from?
It's funny. It's
And it
nice.
it took a
Yeah.
bunch of years, Aaron, for me to really realize my sweet spot. And with the area of work we're doing with succession planning now,
Yes.
it's I spoke
A
to
sweet spot of yours.
a sweet spot. And I'm talking to a leadership team, 7 partners of a company. One of the partners said, like, why you? Like, why should we hire you? Like, what have you done in succession planning? I said, I got myself out of my own business. And they're like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
you know,
Uh, Ivy, this is all great stuff, but I want to concentrate on one small aspect of this, which is which, for the sake of the listener, I've interviewed you for blogs and for other
hey,
things, and there's some information I think needs to get told about you. Um, One thing I remember you saying is when you transitioned from the when you thought about leaving the printing company and wanted to get into consulting or coaching, it was really about meaningful work that you knew you had more to do. You knew that what you were doing before, what you were doing in the printing company, um, wasn't fulfilling something in your soul. Um, okay, so here you are telling us about how you realized when it was um, when you figured it out, and it became clear to you while you were there. What how would you describe your aha moment? If this is the same thing that we're talking about, but I want to get to the more emotional aspects
Okay.
of it, because you are a very compassionate person, and it shows and it comes in every part of what you're doing.
So I knew, you know, I'm never shy. I really don't care about people knowing my age. So you guys could all do the math, listeners, and you could figure this out. In '07, I was 45. I turned 45 in April, and it was like hitting a brick wall. It was, oh, look, you turned 45 this month. Let's have our midlife crisis. Oh, okay. If you look at the textbook, that's in chapter 3. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do at this point in your life. Um, I hit the brick wall. I 100% hit the brick wall. And I said, I don't know how much longer I can do what I do. I have great clients. I make a really good living. My daughter at that point was in high school. My son was in middle school. And I was like, we got here in a blink of an eye. They're going to be in college. And when I blink again, and all of a sudden, like it's going to be my husband and I and our businesses, and I'm going to be a printer. Like, ew. Like it was, my dream was to be a dancer. And then I worked for amazing women entrepreneurs. And I was looked to start my own business. And I tried twice to start a business and I couldn't get the funding. I was 27 years old with a leased car and a leased apartment. It's shocking the bank didn't give me $500,000. Story for another day. And I went on to build a path of doing something I was very good at with people and sales and running a company, but the business didn't fulfill me.
So the brick wall was about substance as well as
It was
emotional
about fulfillment. It's like
fulfillment
when
is a better word. Yeah,
fulfillment, like when you look in the mirror, this was my thing. It's like when I look in the mirror and I say, okay, when the kids are now like out of the house and college and all of these things, who am I?
right.
Who is Ivy Slater Racklin? My full legal name. Who am I? And how do I feel about who I am? And I'm like, I am a printer in New York City. There's so much more to me. And I didn't know what it was and I didn't know how to do it, but I just knew I wasn't going to not figure it out because that's the stubborn piece in me.
Great. Got it. So can you fold that into now? You have told me that you basically joined the coaching consulting industry in its nascency, if that's the right way to pronounce
In
that,
its early days. And,
in its
in
early
'07,
days.
when I went and I started getting certified as a professional coach, it was the very early days of
Right.
coaching.
So talk a little bit about both the category, the business, the industry, and your desire for more fulfilling work and how you achieved all of that in the beginning, if you don't mind.
When a friend of mine said, you have to become a coach, and I said, soccer. And she's like, no, 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 no. There's this whole thing, blah, 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 blah. And I still wasn't getting it. And I was like, I blew out my knee at 23. I really can't teach dance anymore. I don't know what you're talking about. And she goes, go home and look this up. So I went home and I Googled what is coaching, and it said soccer and it said, tennis and it said fencing. And you get to page 3 and all of a sudden it talks about like what other things about coaching, like professional development. And, it didn't really talk about business versus life or this was really the early days. And I was like, this sounds interesting. And I'm a strong believer, Aaron, you and I have a strong background in marketing and advertising. Okay. It's
Yes,
where
we
we
do.
both cut our teeth in those early days, which was one of the things that aligned us so. And I was like, okay, it's time for market research. And I started interviewing people and meeting with people like, is coaching an actual career? I remember having coffee with my daughter's best friend from high school's mother, who did a lot of work in the media and on, various television. I was like, did you hear about this thing called coaching? And she goes, yeah, we're seeing a lot more of it coming into the media and this, that, and the other thing. And my next question to her was, does it pay a bill? Like, can we pay for something? Like, can we buy the girls jeans? Like, tell me. Like, I had no idea. And, to watch the transformation over the last 16, 17 years of this profession, it's number one, it's wild. I think it's so needed. I've taken it in the development of Slater Success of really a hybrid coaching consulting company, because what we do is so much more than just professional development.
Exactly.
People development. We
Right.
really do business development. We work in the areas of scaling a company. We work in the areas of succession planning. Does that go back to developing the people to succeed? And where are they going next? Where's the company going? What is the people? Are they in alignment? Is the leadership team in alignment? We do all that work as well, but we also do the strategic planning.
Right. Right.
And so it's kind of wild. Every time I take that step back, I'm like, wow, look at this. Look, when I tell people all the time, I tell my clients all the time, and when people are interested in talking to me about working together, I'm like, we're so close to our own businesses, we very often can't see the forest from the trees. When you take that step back, which is what we help our clients do, is take that step back to create an see things with objectivity. When I do that for my own company, I sit here and scratch my head. I was like, wow, look what we've done. We've
Right.
built a team of coaches. We've built a back end team of 4 people now who are, and we love each other.
Right.
Every person admires, loves, and respects. And we've built this on the integrity of how we help others. And more than that, touches my heart more than anything.
So we've come to a point where it's 2024, and for those who know the show Billions, which is actually in its final season on Showtime, there is this character, Wendy Rhodes, played by Maggie Siff.
Right.
Right. And I believe that, I mean, I can't verify this. I can't back this up with quantitative data, but I
Which you
believe
do
that
love to do.
well, that's my shtick, man. But I believe that she or the show has done a lot to bring the impression, the image, the practice of coaching into the mainstream. Bust some myths for us if you want to, if you can, about the difference between what
Wendy
Wendy
Rhodes.
Rhodes does
Yeah.
and what you do, because I think there's a big difference. I mean, obviously, there's a narrative that has to be, laid
Right.
down and exposed
Yes,
and
that's
all that
made for,
stuff.
that's made for television syndication, streaming, etc. It's funny because when I'm out speaking, or when I have consults with companies, every so often, somebody will come up to me like, oh, so you're like that woman on Billions. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
not now, the Billions watchers out there, you'll get this. Not exactly like her. Thank you. I'm going to leave it like that. You can go check out Billions, and there's the plug there. Um, it's, she does get into the people. She does get into the people. She does get into the strategy. And that's where we do do things in that same light.
Got it.
I
Yeah.
truly think, your people in any organization is the heart and the pulse of that organization. And when you build an organization and you develop your people of really good people, you're in a great rhythm, a great pulse. And you kind of, you hear it, just so the listeners, so I'll share when I talk about rhythm and pulse, it's the dancer in me. Okay. The dancer in me, going back to one of my teachers in college who said, feel your pulse every day and then create your rhythm to it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
In the choreography class. Um, there's a rhythm to things. I like to think of great business being done as a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, have the flow, have the rhythm. Yeah, if you have a two-step in there, okay, why do we have this two-step going on? We're in a growth pattern. Great. So that's a little faster. It's a little bit what's going on. And it's just like my internal way of thinking about things. But business today, the coaching industry, the coaching consulting industry, it used to be consulting was the PwC, what was Ernst & Young, which is now EY, the McKinsey, they were the big names. Oh, those are consulting companies. There are so many other companies that are my peers and my friends that are offering amazing work in this sweet spot of consulting coaching and that are helping companies scale, that are helping people develop.
That's how I perceive the difference. Just on this one particular question about billions. I mean, billions is all about personal development, I think, and not a lot about the company, or not a lot about how leaders are going to take the company to the next step. From working with you, I mean, you're carving new territory in the idea of strategic planning, succession planning. Succession planning doesn't happen when you retire. That's your mantra. It happens in every year, once a year, when you're doing your strategic plan. Talk a little bit about that.
We think about succession planning of when we want to retire. We think about succession planning when maybe we're thinking about sales or selling a company, merging a company, acquiring a company. And it is all true and relevant, by the way. When you live long enough, we know life is about the curveball out of left field. And there are numerous times, if you read, ladies and gentlemen, that, oh, this person, this happened, right? They had to step out. Mental bandwidth, they didn't have it. There's a lot going on in mental illness in this world. And sometimes people take a sabbatical for their own mental health. You want to build a company, not about succession, about the old people stepping down. You want to build a company that's built on a foundation that when any curveball happens, AKA a global pandemic a few years ago.
That's a question for you, but we'll get back to that. Trust me.
It doesn't shake the foundation. And that's true succession planning. Succession planning is not about, like, we're talking to a company that several of their leaders will be stepping down in 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're being brought in now because we want to build up. We want their knowledge transfer. Their knowledge transfer of 20, 30, 40 years in the industry doesn't happen in 3 to 6 months. Who is coming in to run this, to be part of the leadership team? Are they already on the leadership team? Are we bringing them up? How is this all happening? To what effect and growth for the long-term organization? Because I also believe if we are not growing, we start stagnating. Once we stagnate, we start declining.
Yeah. I want to follow up on just one thing that you just said. You're being brought in. I know, or I can sense that this is a crusade of yours. The business about strategic planning, succession planning, get it done now, think about it all the time. Do you find that people are picking up the phone or contacting you otherwise to be brought in to do that because you've developed some kind of reputation for this now?
I don't know. It's interesting. I was out at an event the other evening and somebody said, "Oh, so you're a coach." And I said, "Well, our sweet spot is, really where the intersection of strategic planning and succession planning for long-term growth. That's our sweet spot." And they're like, you just see their face goes, "Oh, that's interesting. We should, I would like you." People are leaning into it because
Yeah.
it is reality. I have to say, Aaron, I've run a company for over 30 years. I've been in charge of running a company for over 30 years. Life happens. Life
Yes, it
just
does.
happens.
Yeah, yes,
And
it
life,
do.
it happens. not the plan that you planned life to happen on.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember I got a call on a Saturday morning that my dad collapsed,
Mm,
you know, and
mm,
I called strategic people in my office and I said, I don't know when I'm coming back in.
right.
You have
You,
to have the team that could run that. You know, the morning of 9/11, morning of, you know, in New York City, it was a life altering, obviously, but you know, you come to the decision making. You know, my kids are in school in New York City. I'm on my way to work and I have team that I'm responsible for. You have to take care of your kids, you have to take care of your team, you have layers of responsibility, and life happens in a moment. And to be grounded and clear-headed in the strategic decision making is, we can't plan. And succession isn't about the older people leaving. Succession is about somebody moving on to do something else and they have a strategic role in an organization. Because succession should always be a complementary part of long-term growth.
growth. Sure. Yeah. Got it. But just staying again, going back to something you just said, the business about 9/11, COVID, having a massive impact on how businesses are run, how some businesses close altogether in the flash of an eye. Um, I know that you have talked about this. Uh, um, how, if at all, did it change the way you and your clients do business? If you can be general and specific at the same time.
You know what? It's interesting because there's a common thread that nobody really thinks of, or at least I think nobody thinks of. Maybe I'm wrong. Once we got through the initial horror of 9/11, we had to get down to the practical of, we have bills to pay. When are we
Hmm.
manufacturing again? Where is money coming from? We have to make payroll. Okay.
Hmm.
You have a responsibility to your people.
Right.
You know, COVID, my husband looks at me like, you know, a weekend and he goes, I've never seen somebody talk for so many hours a day. I said, my clients are scared. They
Yes.
never, you know, how do
I
you
would
get through this? Right? What
I would
adjustments do
think
you make?
you're brought in as like a surgeon or as a, a medical advisor,
You
kind
know,
of.
I have one client, I did a 8:45 to 9 o'clock phone call every morning with, to just set their, help them set up their head for what, for business. Navigating, moving to a hybrid work, moving to a virtual work environment, getting systems, finding systems. And I'm not I'm not their tech person, but we would just keep asking questions like, and I heard this from this, go check this. And it was just, I pulled people together on just talk business, because people were going into a state of fear. And when we're in fear, we don't go into action. And when we're not in action, we're going to end up neutered. And we go neutered, we go backwards, you
Well,
know.
if I may, it also sounds like you were playing a critical role for these clients in addressing their fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Um, because that's what was going on at the time. Nobody knew what was
Because
going to
it's a
happen
fact.
next.
Listen, I didn't have a crystal ball. I had no idea what was going to happen. I was navigating things with my own family, with my mother, like
Hmm.
safety and this and that.
Yeah,
But I know one thing, and this is the one last thing we cover. Know from a place of fear, you cannot make a clear-headed decision. So what do you need to do for yourself to ground yourself? If it's talking to someone, if it's a colleague, if it's a professional, if it's a coach, I don't care who, talk things out. Look at things from various points of view. Do your inner work to ground yourself. If you meditate, if you walk, go out and take a walk. I don't care what you do. I like a good walk. I like a good meditation. It doesn't matter, I know when we have things that would throw us, and the pandemic was something like that, our responsibility and our job is to stay clear-headed, grounded, to execute smart decisions. I didn't say right decisions, but if they're
sure.
grounded decisions, we could then make them right. So, Erin, now that we've chatted about making decisions from a grounded, calm place, I think we're going to wrap this for today. And listeners, we're doing this as a two-part episode because Aaron pushed me to talk about so much, and I truly appreciate you for that. So what I say at the close of every her success story, take a moment, take a breath. What was most helpful to you? What was your aha, your takeaway from listening to Aaron and I's conversation today? Jot it down somewhere. Then make that all-important decision on what action you're going to take from there. It's from our actions that we get results. As Aaron and I jump in next week as we continue our conversation, he is pushing me to share a little bit about how numbers tell a story and my philosophy around that. So I look forward to you joining back in, and thank you for joining us today on Her Success Story. Aaron, thank you for the great interview.